Hey, thanks everybody for stopping by again. We were breaking out the old storage briefcase right here on the last video. We've kind of taken the time to kind of sort everything together. We haven't went through everything individually, just kind of put like items together, and now we're going to go through it. What we're going to be looking at is like some looks like some 1979 and I believe 1980, 79 and 80 basketball sets. You know, it's kind of interesting what we found. We found some old stickers. We found some gum. This is like no BS card gum, and it's in the package, so I'm guessing that must have been around the early 2000s. But back in the day, that stuff used to just come by itself, and man, it could ruin some cards, ruin some days. First thing we're going to look at is some of these sticker sets from the 1980 season, and you can see they got a front and back. There's a cartoon on the back. That was a big thing back in the day. You know, this artistic style, these cartoons. Football, basketball, baseball, you flipped them over, and there's always a little cartoon with some key facts or figures or points in history, but we'll go through those real quick. Some old school logos right there, you know, and hey, the stickers are still on the card. I don't know if they stick to anything, but you know, they're not in the best of shape, but hey, they're still there on the card. Here's the Knicks, and then some of them you could put together and make a poster. That's the same one. Old school Denver Nuggets logo. Indiana Pacers. Not much has changed since 1980. Old school Hawks. Spurs. Phoenix Suns. Detroit Pistons. Another Phoenix Suns. And then the iconic Philadelphia 76ers. Here's some superstar cards. I don't remember what these came from or how they got into here, but you know, there was some big names. Bob Cousy, Wilt Chamberlain, and then some just beat up guys. So we'll start with these over here, these 1980 basketball, and you can see like these cards, I don't know why they did it. I'm glad they didn't do it for a very long time, but you got a regular size card, which they were perforated, and we've talked about this before. There's that perforation line, so you see this full-size card, and each one of these were a third. And there were some great card combinations. So, you know, on one card, you could get some really amazing players. Like, here's a Pete Maravich, but he's by himself, and a Lloyd Free, and he's by himself. You know, back in the day, we used to break them apart and kind of play games with them. So we'll go through these guys real quick. Artist Gilmore slam dunk. See if we see anybody of note. And you'd see like they'd have rebounding leaders mixed in. So they, like your insert cards were part of a full card. There's an Elvin Hayes scoring leader with the Washington Bullets. We may see some big names. We may see some no names. Definitely a lot different than what we see today. You know, I haven't been into any basketball cards probably since this era, but you know, I do see them at card shops, and they look totally different. You know, I think collectors and buyers would lose their mind if they came out. Here's one. So a combination with Nate Archibald and Elvin Hayes, who at the time, you know, those guys were solid players. There's a Kareem Abdul-Jabbar scoring leader. Surprised I didn't break that Kareem apart just to get him away from those other guys. I don't know. We used to break them apart and kind of, I don't even remember what we did with them, like card battle with them in those individual ones. And man, it ruined some real nice cards. So we're not really seeing too much of note, just some regular base cards. There's Lloyd Free again. We had him separated earlier. Now we have him together. Oh, well, we found a Kareem. beat, and that right there, that's indicative of some of the problems you'd have when you'd go to separate these cards. Here's a Larry Bird. That's from his rookie year as a rebounding leader. So that's a nice card. And we were limited too, we could only really buy cards where we could ride our bike to. Here's a Kareem rebounding leader. There's Dr. J, Julius Erving. We were limited. Moses Malone. We could just, hey, ride your bike over to the convenience store, buy some cards, or the grocery store. Here's a cool combination with Bob Lanier and Bill Walton. Got some more of these to go through quickly. John Lucas. So, depending on how many kids in the neighborhood were into these cards, man, you might not get a chance or a crack to get very many good cards, if any cards at all. And then you were just limited to what that store or shop was buying. And you couldn't go online and buy cards. You could do mail order cards, but they were fairly expensive, and nobody's parents were gonna go out and write checks to these strange companies to order cards that we could get at the grocery store. Just it didn't go down like that. The game was a lot different than it is today. Here's a Robert Parrish with the Golden State Warriors. So nowadays, you could, hey, you can't find what you're looking for at your local retailer or local card shop. You go online, find what you're looking for, pay for it, and man, it comes in the mail. But that just didn't exist back in the days. I like it a lot better now, but there was something to be said about this. So we were limited on what we could get. If there was any, if they were releasing cards of certain players in one area and not in another, you were limited on what you were going to be able to get, and it made cards really hard to find. Rudy Tomjanovich and a Doug Collins, another Moses Malone. There's Robert Parrish again. There's another mobile. So you got, this was like their style of insert card. So you had, Robert Parrish as the rebounding leader, and then you've got his base card right here, and it's next to a Moses Malone rebounding leader. So the team leaders were separate cards, and that's kind of, the closest correlation I can come is that was those days insert cards, what we see today. That's a pretty cool card right there. Photo quality wasn't great. Card quality wasn't awesome. Sometimes they'd come, here's one of those cartoons that we were talking about earlier, and then it's also a checklist. I don't know how many cards we ruined, keeping track of things. We didn't have spreadsheets. George Gervin, we had fat pencils and tablets and whatever the card company, Earl the Pearl. It's pretty nice. It really goes way back to see who was in the league at the time. And then they had all-star inserts. So there was Bill Cartwright as an all-star, and then Bill Cartwright as his team rebounding leader. Those are some old names, man. Otis Birdsong with the Kansas City Kings. Mo Cheeks. Just passed up a Kermit Washington card. I wonder if we get a Rudy Tomjanovich and a Kermit Washington all together in one card. Chris Ford. Yeah, there's not a lot of, I'm not seeing, there's a Dennis Johnson, real young, when he was with the Suns. So he went from the Suns to the Sonics to the Celtics. George Gervin. Another George Gervin with the Mo Cheeks base. There's Rudy and Doug. Crazy. Bob McAdoo. And you can really see how the look of the game has changed. That's one thing that was interesting to me, is how the look of the game has changed. So we're just scrolling through there real quick. There's a Kareem Abdul-Jabbar All-Star. There's another one. Another Bob Lanier, Bill Walton, and another. George Gervin base. George Gervin scoring leader. So that looks to be pretty much it for the 1980 basketball. Now we got these, what was it, 1979, and we'll just thumb through these real quick to see if there's anybody of any note. There's a Moses Malone. A lot of common cards. You know, technology was just, it was limited back then. Not a lot of things you'd want to see or buy these days unless you're really into that. Cedric Maxwell with the Celtics. Paul Westphal. I don't know if we'll see anybody of note. Calvin Murphy, the Rockets. That guy Rick Roby with the Celtics. There's another Robert Parrish. Pistol Pete Maravich. Wow, that's going way back. Bob McAdoo. JoJo White with the Warriors. Elvin Hayes. Yeah, there's the checklist scribbled all over. Hey, at least we knew what we had that way. You know, what could we do back then? All right, the last stack. Let's see if there's anyone of note. Let me break this stack down a little bit more to make it easier to go through and keep it viewable. Bob Dandridge, Marcus Johnson, George Johnson, Jim Jones, Terry Tyler, Walter Davis, Spencer Haywood, Bill Knight, Bernard King. Shout out to Curtis Blow. Basketball back in the day, talking about Bernard King. Lloyd Free, changed his name to World B. Free. Had a unique shooting style. You know, coaches would tell you, hey, don't shoot like that. But we'd see, you know, here's this guy in the pros doing it just like that. And hell, he was a pro, so why the heck not? We figured we could do it too. Yeah, Rick Barry at the free throw line with his iconic underhand free throw shooting style. John Lucas, Earl the Pearl. Wow, Mitch Kupchak. There's an old Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. It's not in the great shape. Corners are dinged. Of course, it wasn't in the best. 1978. There's 77 on the back of the card. A lot of times, if it was a card from 77, you'd be able to buy it in the 78 year. But 77, 78, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar with the little cartoon letting us know that Kareem studied Arabic at Harvard. Real intelligent guy, you know. I don't think he got enough credit for how intelligent he was back while he was playing. Nowadays, you know, he gets his just credit, but wasn't always that way. One of my favorite players for sure, Kareem. Like I said, I was a big Laker fan. You know, the Showtime Lakers, Kareem, Magic, James Worthy. That's probably why I'm not seeing a lot of these guys. If I had any of those guys, I've sorted them out and either traded them off or sold them along the way. These are really just commons and whatever's left. Bobby Jones. Maurice Lucas. It's just interesting to see some of the names that are in the game still. Doug Collins, you know, like through broadcasting, TV, whatever. Nate Archibald. Finishing up with Caldwell Jones.